Superman and the phone booth. If you ask the average person on the street, where does Clark Kent change into Superman, 9 out of 10 people will answer, in a phone booth. But why? Why has the phone booth become synonymous with Superman? Let's go back in time and take a look at the various eras of Superman. In the golden age of comic books, Clark Kent rarely used the phone booth to change into Superman. Actually, right throughout every era of Superman comic books, the phone booth change isn't often seen. Yes, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, creators of Superman, used the phone booth for Clark Kent to change into Superman in a Sunday newspaper comic strip in late 1942. Clark, seeing that there is a job for Superman, excuses himself from Lois by arranging to be called away by a bogus phone call. While inside the phone booth, he says to himself, "This definitely isn't the most comfortable place in the world to switch garments, but I've got to change identities, and in a hurry." Yet this was not the very first time Superman found himself changing clothes inside a phone booth. Bud Collyer, who voiced Superman in the 1940s radio series, would also sometimes state in an episode that he needed to duck into a nearby phone booth for a quick change from his Clark Kent identity into the colourful garb of Superman. Some of the earliest examples of Clark Kent using a phone booth to change into Superman in the comic books are Action Comics number 119 from 1948 in the story Superman for a Day by Edmund Hamilton, Superman number 60 in 1949 in the story Superman Fights the Super Brain by Don Cameron, and in Superman number 69, 1951, in the story The Prankster's Apprentice, we see Clark removing his shirt in a phone booth. In the Adventures of Superman TV series of the 1950s starring George Reeves, Clark mostly used the Daily Planet storeroom to make his costume change. Sometimes he used a back alleyway, but in all 104 episodes he never used a phone booth. A phone booth was used in the 1966 Broadway musical It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman starring Bob Holliday. During the opening song, Superman flew onto the stage singing the song Doing Good, while changing from Superman to Clark Kent using a prop phone booth. But to be fair, the average person on the street isn't even aware that there was a Superman Broadway musical. However, for the phone booth to be used here in 1966 is an obvious hint that the connection between Superman and the phone booth had already been established. But let's continue on. I don't recall Clark using a phone booth in any of the 1960s Filmation Superman cartoons, and in the 1970s Super Friends cartoons we hardly saw Clark Kent at all, as those cartoons focused mostly on the superheroes rather than their secret identities. But Clark did attempt to change into Superman in a phone booth in the Super Friends The Legendary Superpowers show, episode titled The Bride of Darkseid, but Firestorm's arrival to save a falling Daily Planet globe negates the change. There are a few examples from the comic books in the 1970s, but they are few and far between. Action Comics number 450 from August 1975, World's Finest Comics number 252 from September 1978, and World's Finest Comics number 255 from March 1979 all have scenes in which Clark Kent uses a phone booth to change into Superman. Even though use of the phone booth wasn't widely seen over the first 40 years of his existence, the phone booth and Superman are so connected within the minds of the general public that in 1978, when Superman the movie was released to theatres, people roared with laughter when Clark Kent, seeing Lois dangling from the crashed helicopter atop the Daily Planet building, looks for somewhere to change into Superman, walks up to an open design phone booth, looks it up and down, and realises it won't do. Superman finally finds a suitable phone booth in the fourth Christopher Reeve Superman film, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. When a train driver suffers a heart attack, Clark is standing on the subway waiting for a train. He hears Lois Lane scream, looks quickly around, then rushes into a telephone booth and emerges as Superman. The Ruby Spears Superman cartoons saw Clark Kent changing to Superman inside a phone booth in the episode titled Night of the Living Shadows and Bone Chill from 1988. And yes, Clark Kent was seen to use a phone booth in a few episodes of the live-action Superboy TV series of the late 1980s, early 1990s. To my knowledge, there are 3 phone booth changes in Lois and Clark. In the second season episode, The Eyes Have It, a blind Superman deciding that it's a bad idea to call his parents from Lois's apartment, throws on some sweats and takes to the street. He stumbles into an enclosed phone booth to call them. After completing his call, he hears a cry for help and spins into Superman. In Season 3's When Irish Eyes Are Killing, Clark also does a spin change within a phone booth. Also in Season 4, in the episode I've Got You Under My Skin, a villain swaps bodies with Clark Kent, realizes he's Superman, and changes clothes in a phone booth, stepping out as Superman. There was no phone booth used in Superman the Animated Series, and no phone booth in the Justice League cartoons. Although in the future Clark rushed for a phone booth in Batman the Brave and the Bold episode titled Triumvirate of Terror. There are a number of Smallville phone booth scenes that are of note. At halftime of a 2013 football game, the Ohio State University marching band reinforced this idea of Superman in the phone booth when they performed their tribute to Hollywood blockbuster films. Their performance started off with a magnificent tribute to Superman, which saw Clark Kent emerge out of a phone booth. The thing is, the joke in Superman the movie works because for some reason everyone knows Clark Kent uses a phone booth to make his quick change into Superman. But where did this knowledge come from? Not from the comic books or newspaper strips, not from the various TV shows, not from the cartoons shown on TV. No, none of these. The answer lies way back in 1941. To my knowledge, Clark Kent first changed to Superman inside a phone booth in The Mechanical Monsters, the second of 17 Superman cartoons produced by Fleischer Studios for Paramount Pictures. It was released to cinemas on November 28, 1941. Having phoned in the news of the robbery to the Daily Planet, Clark exits the phone booth to find Lois missing. Looking up, he sees the mechanical monster flying away, so he darts back inside the phone booth and changes to Superman.
This is a job for Superman.
From this long ago cinema cartoon comes the connection between Superman and the phone booth. It is interesting to note that this isn't the only time Clark Kent changed into Superman inside a phone booth in the Fleischer cartoons. In The Bulleteers, released March 27, 1942, looking to be first on the scene for a story, Lois races off in her car, leaving Clark behind. He waves her a salute and ducks into a nearby phone booth to change into Superman.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Superman and the phone booth have been immortalized in a range of merchandise such as statues, figurines, metal containers, posters, and even salt and pepper shakers. I've been unable to find each and every comic book issue since that 1941 cartoon was released where Clark was shown using a phone booth, but I have managed to find quite a few other uses of the phone booth in relation to Superman in other mediums, and have created an image gallery at our website highlighting some of these uses.
Cool costume.
Thanks. My mom made it for me.
Interestingly enough, in this day and age of mobile phone technology, the street side phone booth is quickly being relegated as a thing of the past. So much so that various communities have had disputes with their local councils over the removal of phone booths from their streets. There are a couple of interesting articles on the disappearing phone booths and enclosed phone booths at a website called Forgotten NY. Thanks to Bob Holliday, Jim Hambrick, Jim Bowers, Doug Chambers, Michael Cook, Neil Bailey, Brian McKernan, Eddie Cairo, Claire Seifert, Mike Zumo, and Jeremy Crawford, who all helped out with bits of research for this video. I'm Steve Eunice from SupermanHomepage.com.